The Northwest is filled with mountains, lakes, trees, and traditions. Wood carving is an old Northwest tradition. There's so many things in nature here that inspire an artist. I do consider myself a Northwest artist and a traditional artist to boot. I'm Ed Quigley, woodcarver and painter, but carving has been more or less of a hobby for me. It's fun to take a square block and start carving and make a figure develop out of it that seems to have life. I've done a lot of carving commercially, but mostly for fun. Mother said when I was a little kid in my high chair, they'd give me a cookie and I'd bite a horse out of it. So some affection there from the very beginning. I love to be around a good horse. I like to smell them. I like to go out and take care of them. I've carved so much in sugar pine, which is a nice wood to carve. It's a good uniform grain. It's fairly soft. One that I never finished is a group of buffalo carved out of maple, eastern maple. I think there's about 5 buffalo and a calf in that. It's a nice design, nice composition, but I never did quite finish it. Some people tell me that I paint horses that are too well nourished and so forth, but I've very seldom have painted a poor bony horse. I kind of feel sorry for him, I guess. I thought that being a painter too, I could combine it in a diorama, which with proper lighting would be like a painting in a way and still something that had life to it. The wagons probably took about a month apiece, a little bit better. The things that I carved are the things that I like the best. The draft teams and the crazy clown band. I used to follow them along the street when they had the parades when I was a kid. All those circus horses down there are 4 inches thick sugar pine. I would draw my elevation of the horse and the attitude I wanted on that one side of that. Then I could draw a line on the back of the spine, the center, all the way around the horse. That was the first team, that was the 6-horse team that I carved. And that took a week apiece to carve each horse, paint them with dapple gray, and make the harness. At the Goodwill, I could get some belts that some very large woman wore that maybe 3 feet long. I could cut the little strings for the reins. The other leather was from old purses, and the hames were cut out of holly. I made the buckles out of paper clips. When I carved these figures on top of the bandwagon, they all had instruments like a trombone, and clarinet, like Emmett Kelly. Otto Griebling, another pantomime clown, a tramp clown, used a lot of little gimmicks like juggling and knitting. He was knitting this piece. He sits up on the bandwagon there in his derby hat and his tramp clothes and knitting on this little piece of yarn.
There's all the trees out there and the Columbia Gorge and the streams going by, and that at least the air is still fairly breathable. I go to San Francisco or back east somewhere, well, my God, it might be nice to go to one of the big fancy restaurants or the theater or something like that for a few days, but as far as living there, I couldn't imagine living anywhere but in Oregon. Well, I don't like having to be completely involved with the world. I'd rather have my own little world, and if I have to go out and cope with the rest of it, okay, sometimes I want to, but it's nice to be able to be completely enclosed by nothing other than your own interests. I'm Douglas McGregor. I live and work in the privacy that I can find in Corbett, Oregon. I restore carousel animals and make real and mythical creatures. The first animal that I made was an Oregon leopard frog. And I went through a few other various ideas for animals and came up with frogs. No one had ever particularly made a frog, at least not one like mine. Found a picture of a frog sitting that I liked, so I took that photograph and blew the body up to the size that I wanted. From there, it's just a matter of changing your drawing into a wooden animal. Frog is hollow, and so is his head. Just make a square box and round off the corners. The legs are either just glued and nailed or glued and pegged. Carousel animals were generally made out of whatever was the soft carving wood that grew in that area. I use basswood. I just like the wood. And also it's compatible with the repairs that I make. A lot of my work is just matching what the original carver did, which can really be kind of hard sometimes because there were so many different carvers and so many different styles. You look at one horse and you can say, oh, well, this is a Parker and this is a Loof, and this is an Illians and this is a Densel. Well, every one of those carvers had developed their own style. The whole carousel animal thing probably started somewhere around in the 1850s in Europe. And the first person that came to the United States was Densel. Okay, well, he came over here and went to work for a furniture factory. And then, since he had made animals before, he made a carousel, and I think the first one he made entirely in his spare time at home. And he started taking that around to parks and setting it up, and it just kind of snowballed. I am helping to preserve this kind of carousel-related art in giving these animals kind of a new lease on life. Well, there's one company that still makes carousel animals, and they make them out of magnesium from copies of animals that the company was making in the 30s. There aren't any that are making them out of wood anymore. I think you can't. It's time-consuming, and there aren't any woodcarvers anymore either. I've always been interested in making things out of wood, and I started out making bowls and then hand-hewn furniture and buildings. About 10 years ago, I was given an animal to repair, which led me into making my own animals about 3 or 4 years ago. They take on a whole new life after they're painted. It's a complete transformation. Everything is there when the carving is done, but painting, it's like the frosting on the cake. I do almost exclusively my work for collectors. You know, something unusual or an animal that they've always, a dream animal. I kind of like to make people's dreams come true. Well, I'd like to make a carousel of flying horses, Pegasus. centaurs, griffins. A dragon here and there, or, you know, some kind of sea monster-y looking thing with flippers and that kind of thing. I sort of consider myself still a child anyway.
That ocean throws up some very interesting and beautiful things. It's very exciting, very rewarding, just being there. It's like a vacation. It's like a summer camp all year round down there. Yeah, I love it on the beach. Really, I was fishing here on the coast, and when the salmon season was over, there wasn't much to do, and I had no other job, and simply started bringing home pieces of wood from the beach, and I don't know, just started carving. I started working with small birds. I'm Gary Howser. I'm a woodworker. I live on the Oregon coast, the beautiful Oregon coast in Seal Rock. Came to this area 8 years ago after several city jobs. Find the coast and the ocean a very seductive place. Lots of good materials, lots of privacy, lots of quiet, lots of nice people. It's a good place to live, a really good place to work. There's probably two ways that you can approach the beach and the wood that's there. You could need something or have an idea, a preconceived idea of what it is you want to make. You go looking for that. Your selective perception is oriented towards that particular kind of wood. Or you can go other times, which are more fun times, that you're freer and open. You're looking at everything and, you know, considering what possibilities could come from this piece of wood or that piece of wood. Approach it physically to see what, initially, if you can identify the wood. You can't do that right off. You take an axe or a knife and just break through that outer patina, the outer bark, and see what the wood's like. Some days will be very, very good in terms of maybe a couple of redwood burls that are very precious. You feel really good. It's a nice score, good hit. There's nothing in a lumber yard for me. The free form of the stuff that's on the beach is simply there, and why follow it up? Why make it square? I like to preserve as much of what nature has done as possible. If I didn't, I'd manufacture plastic tables. And the really exciting thing about, not working for somebody else and doing what you want to do is that you can do that. You can wake up in the morning and get up and say, I'm going to do outside things today, and go out with a chainsaw and spend the day doing them. Maybe the next day you'll feel different. I guess a person needs that freedom and that luxury to be able to do that and feel good about what they're doing. I feel quite guilty about being so happy with what I'm doing. Our environment has a lot to do with what I feel like doing. Midwinter, it feels really good to spend 3 or 4 days on a little piece down in the shop where it's warm and dry, and you feel like doing small, tiny things and, you know, creating little environments. And there's a point where you conceptualize something, and then you get into the mechanics of it, and it does become often the sheer mechanics of getting the notion done in a physical form. It becomes boring. I mean, who likes to spend 8 hours sanding a piece of wood? You know, I can't really say it's a lot of fun, but it has to be done to finish out the concept. Aesthetically, I really like the better hardwoods. Each one has to be approached a little bit differently. Well, you never know, you know, what any piece of wood is going to do until you're all done with it, and then you don't know because it's still moving, it's still a living thing. And when it's a done end product, and it can be somebody's living room for a year, it's still moving and shifting, and it's alive, you know, and you just have to realize that. It really, you know, makes you feel good when somebody, it doesn't matter who, says, hey, I really like that, I'd like to have it. Sure, that's a different part of woodworking, but it's very, very important. Yeah, I do most things, you know, totally for myself, and it feels very good that somebody else likes it too.
I think I call myself an existential artist, sculptor.
My name is Royce Etzel, and I'm a wood sculptor. And I am sitting here on this mountainside near Sheridan, Oregon, because it offers me the opportunity to have a tree farm and to work in large experimental things that I couldn't do in the city.
I started this hardwood forest as the first of what I hope will be several hardwood forests for sculptors. There are thousands of oak trees and hundreds of little black walnut trees. And the idea is that in the future, sculptors can come and choose a tree of their liking, free of charge, and the only requirement is that they replace it with a hardwood seedling. But I think that the state of Oregon ought to set aside several regions designated for the creative use of wood. These are teak wood relief panels commissioned by Salishan. They were a landmark in my career in that they offered me the first opportunity to, on a large scale, to work with lots of gorgeous teak. The great things about the Salishan people is that they allowed me absolute freedom, didn't even insist on a sketch, you know, which is quite unusual, especially with an artist who's not very well known, and allowed me to work out a brand new discovery that I had made just previous to this occasion. That is to relate sculptural forms to sculptural forms without any relationship to anything that is recognizable. This is important for sculpture because whereas in music, nobody asks you what does a concerto mean. Everybody, you know, has solved that problem long ago, but people looking at sculpture think they have to know what it means. But they are, on the surface, naturalistically speaking, meaningless, but sculpturally speaking, of, I think, great significance. I don't work from models, and I only make sketches when I have to. Usually, even on commission work, I draw right on the material, on the wood. And when I have to submit sketches for a commission, they're very, very limited sketches. And then with the proviso that it's not necessarily going to be that way. As far as I can tell, the beginnings of my interest in wood were in New Caledonia in the Pacific, where I was the chaplain. And there was a piece of Pacific mahogany laying on the road there, and I picked it up and started to carve it. And I guess that's the emotional beginning, because I think human beings in general have a very primitive liking for wood. I think there is an increasing return to wood. We're all sick to death of plastics already, you know. I went to Johns Hopkins for a couple of years had the mistaken idea that I'd like to teach philosophy. But I gave that up and I came to Oregon. The old primitive urge saw all this wood out here. And one great thing about being a wood artist, of course, is that in Oregon and Northwest in general, you can have all the wood you want for nothing. People burn the most fantastic wood. Some of the best wood in the world is burned here. Some days I feel extremely negative. Nevertheless, I go to work, and I don't go out and get drunk or go to the movies or anything like that, because I think you can never predict what the day is going to be like. Sometimes you start out the day very, very negative, But sometimes you get started on something that has almost no idea connected with it. Gradually, something happens, and the day ends up magnificent. Had you thrown the day away, you'd have missed the whole thing. Missed maybe a fantastic discovery. I take wood for what it is, because whatever happens, the final product is always 50% the wood, and only at best 50% is the artist, because the wood is a highly determinative thing, both as regards shape and color. Each different kind of wood will allow you to do different kinds of things. For non-commissioned work, you make the kind of thing that you are today and feel like. For example, there are some times when you feel like doing little tiny things, and it's a very nice, even thrilling thing. There's some days you die rather than do a tiny thing. You feel like doing big things, massive things, you know, things that are uncomplicated. Sandpaper is an impersonal, deadening, kind of a very rude, crude tool. So it wipes out all your personal marks that you have made, so that the end result, like most furniture, is dead. And it is dead, too.
Privacy or working alone are essential to most artists, certainly, but it's absolutely a requirement for mine. To create anything requires intense concentration. And that's why when people come in and say, I won't say anything, can I come in and watch you work? It's not true, you know, because they can't keep their mouths shut most of the time.
I like to work, and I believe in work. The creative discoveries happen while you're working, not while you're dreaming.